a cold February day in 2013, 30-year-old Kira Steger left her husband at home to attend a work function. But Kira never made it to work that day, or the day after. It became clear that something was wrong. Days passed with no sign of Kira as investigators looked deeper into her personal life. As they peeled back the layers, a tale of infidelity that reached a horrific conclusion was revealed. This is the story of Kira Steger. Kira K. Steger was born on November 19, 1982 in Des Plaines, Illinois, to parents Marcy and Jay Steger. Those who knew Kira described her as a kind woman who was bright and full of life. She came from a large family and had 5 siblings: Carrie Ann, Austin, Felicia, Jameson, and Jenna. Kira graduated from D.C. Everest High School in 2001. By 2013, Kira was working for 2 stores at the Bloomington, Minnesota's Mall of America, Wet Seal and Delia's. She got along extremely well with her co-workers, considering them more as family than work colleagues. Her favorite place to go out with friends was Ruby Tuesdays. When she wasn't working, Kira enjoyed walking her dog, Cayman, a Lhasa Apso mix, getting her daily exercise in, and reading. In recent months, Kira had been playing with the idea of going back to school to become a teacher. Around 2010, Kira met Jeffrey Trevino, who was 9 years old, her senior. The two hit it off and marriage followed. They lived together in an East Iowa Avenue home in St. Paul, Minnesota. On Thursday, February 21, 2013, Kira came in for her regular shift at work. The Minnesota winter had been awful that season, but the freezing conditions and snowfall didn't stop Kira from coming into work. In fact, there was not much that would stop Kira from following through with any commitments. She wasn't the type of person to be late, and certainly wasn't the type of person to miss work without prior notice. That Thursday shift went as usual. Before leaving the end of the day, Kira mentioned to her co-workers that she had a nice evening dinner planned with her husband. She was spotted that evening out with Jeffrey. 2 days passed, and it was now Saturday, February 23rd. Every one of Kira's co-workers arrived for their shift as planned. But unusually, Kira was not on time. Initially, this didn't strike anyone as too strange. Perhaps she had been held up by the snow and would probably trot through the door in the next few minutes. This is not what happened. When it became clear to Kira's co-workers that this wasn't some sort of weather-related delay, they began trying to contact her. Repeated calls and text messages went unanswered, so the next logical thing to do was call Jeffrey. Jeffrey said he had not seen Kira since the previous day. Apparently, she had left their home on Friday morning and hadn't come back. Jeffrey wasn't worried, though. He said this wasn't out of the ordinary for his wife. When pressed by Kira's co-worker, Jeffrey concluded that something may have happened to Kira on the way to work, or maybe her phone was out of battery. Sometime later that day, when he still hadn't heard from Kira, Jeffrey reported her missing. Upon receiving the report, investigators got to work on Kira's case immediately. Jeffrey was questioned, as is common procedure in these days, and the area surrounding her home was searched. Jeffrey told them about the events that led up to Kira leaving. They had dinner at the Mall of America, where they chatted over good food. Then they went bowling. Once they were done, the pair left and headed home to watch a movie. The next day, at around 8:30 a.m., Kira left the home to attend a work event. Her behavior didn't seem odd, and Jeff saw nothing that indicated to him that Kira wouldn't be coming home at the end of the day. It came out during these conversations with investigators that Kira and Jeffrey had been going through relationship issues for the past few months. Jeffrey said it wasn't anything crazy or something they couldn't work through, but it had inevitably put a strain on things. The investigators then asked Jeffrey who Kira may be staying with. He mentioned previous times that she had spent with friends or family, but adamantly denied the suggestion by an investigator that Kira could be staying with a man. He admitted to asking Kira this, to which she answered in the negative, but added that he loved and trusted her. While the interview wrapped up, another officer went to the Mall of America to see if they could find any clues to substantiate Jeffrey's claims. The vast array of CCTV cameras across the 5,600,000 square feet building should make that easy to follow up on. After finding the footage of Kira leaving work, the investigators followed up on Jeffrey's claims of meeting up with his wife for bowling and dinner. The CCTV footage confirmed this is exactly what happened. Jeffrey met up with his wife and they spent some time together. The pair then left together. There seemed to be no tension between them as they went down to the parking lot and drove away. As Kira's family heard of her bizarre disappearance, they traveled down to Bloomington so they could be closer to the search efforts. Flyers were printed and posted around town, and everyone who knew and loved her were sharing Kira's face across all of their social media profiles, hoping someone would come forward with information that could help the investigation. While the investigators began questioning neighbors of Kira and Jeffrey to see if they witnessed anything strange in the days leading up to her disappearance, they discovered one of the homes had a surveillance camera installed. One of the angles that this camera covered happened to show Kira and Jeffrey's driveway. Naturally, they knocked on that neighbor's door and asked if they could have access to that footage. This would either prove that Kira left on Friday morning and didn't return, or paint a very different picture. The next focus of the investigation was looking into Kira's phone records to see if that would provide a clue as to why she had left. This search proved fruitful when investigators discovered Kira had been talking to another man. 32-year-old Ryan Wendt also worked at Delia's in the Mall of America. Things turned romantic between the two in mid-January. Kira's phone records showed that she had been messaging Ryan on the evening of February 21st, telling him that she was on a date with her husband. Ryan had left earlier that afternoon for a ski trip to Colorado with friends. This was proven by gas station receipts in Freeman, South Dakota at 7:14 p.m., Grand Island, Nebraska at 11:45 p.m., and Ogallala, Nebraska at 2:01 a.m. on February 22nd. During later testimony, Ryan explained, "We had a friendship at one point that became romantic on several occasions." He went on to say that they saw each other once or twice a week, but that was mainly while other friends weren't around. The last message Kira sent Ryan came in at 11:44 p.m. on February 21st. Ryan responded around 20 minutes later, but his message went unanswered. Initially, Ryan was looked at as a suspect. The fact that he had left town around the same time as Kira raised eyebrows, but when investigators contacted Ryan, he agreed to go into a Colorado police department for questioning. He told the detectives his movements, and when this was proven by the gas station receipts and cell phone tower pings, the investigators were confident he was not responsible for her disappearance. When they looked at the time of Kira's messages to Ryan and compared them to the CCTV footage from the Mall of America, investigators determined she had been messaging him while out on her date night with Jeffrey. Going back to that surveillance camera on the neighbor's house, after the investigators had access to the footage, they were initially concerned about what they would be able to uncover. You see, the camera was set up to pan across the street, meaning there wasn't a consistent view over Kira and Jeffrey's driveway. There was a chance that the camera would be pointing in the wrong direction when something happened at the house. As they slowly went through the footage, examining every inch that was on screen, they spotted something. Shortly after 2 a.m., Kira's case reversed into the yard. The investigators couldn't get a clear view of what was going on, but the car then pulled out and headed down the road. When Jeffrey was questioned about this, he had a reason for the late-night drive. He explained that Kira had asked him to fill her tank before she went to work the next morning. Once investigators checked the gas station surveillance footage, they found that Jeffrey was actually telling the truth. He had been to fill up Kira's tank at around 3 a.m. that morning. But Jeffrey didn't drive straight home. Instead, he drove off towards the highway. While the neighbor's surveillance camera did see Kira's car leaving the home at 9:21 a.m., it did not record when the car arrived home in the early morning hours. This was likely due to it facing in the wrong direction when the car pulled in. On February 25th, the police department got a call about a car that had been left in one of the Mall of America parking ramps for a few days. A tow truck was called to remove it, and when the driver arrived, he began looking over the vehicle. Before he hitched it up, the man spotted some suspicious-looking red smudges on the boot. Since the car had just been abandoned there, the tow truck driver thought it was best to notify the police. When officers arrived and ran the plates, they discovered the car belonged to missing person Kira Steger. When they looked inside the vehicle, Kira's purse was found with divorce papers inside. When DNA test results came back for the small amounts of blood on and around the car, it came back as a match for Kira. It was becoming abundantly clear that this missing persons investigation was now looking more like a homicide case. But if that was the case, where was Kira's body? After reviewing the cameras that showed cars entering the parking lot, Kira's car was seen pulling in at approximately 9:41 a.m., 20 minutes after it left her home. While there were no cameras inside the parking lot to show who got out of the car, there was one pointing to the exit. A few minutes after Kira's car arrived, a man wearing a hoodie was seen exiting. He was seen walking across the street to a taxi stand. He briefly spoke to a driver before hopping inside. The investigators then did some good old-fashioned detective work. They found out which company parked their cars there, identified the plate of the taxi that the hooded man got into, and then requested the GPS data from that particular taxi to see where the man had been dropped off. This showed that the man got dropped off about a block away from Kira and Jeffrey's home. That same hooded man was spotted walking into Kira and Jeffrey's house not long after, thanks to the neighbor's surveillance camera. It wasn't hard to come to the conclusion that the man in the hoodie was Jeffrey Trevino. Once they had this information, the investigators got a search warrant for the house. This was quickly approved and they began their search. At first, nothing seemed really out of the ordinary. This soon changed when an ominous red stain was found in the main bedroom, eerily forming the shape of a human head and torso. When luminol was sprayed over the room in an effort to see the blood that was no longer visible to the eye, it lit up like a Christmas tree. Clotted blood and human tissue was also found in a carpet cleaner in the home. It was clear that someone had been trying their best to clean something up with visible bleach stains on the floor and a smell of detergent evident throughout the home. Even though they didn't have Kira's body, the investigators felt they had enough evidence to charge Jeffrey with her murder. As he was brought into the interrogation room for questioning, Jeffrey requested an attorney right away. He then exercised his right to remain silent, being entirely unhelpful with assisting authorities to locate Kira's body. For the 6 weeks following Kira's disappearance, her friends, family, and the investigators assigned to her case did everything they could to find her. As the snow began to melt away towards the end of March, a strange bag was found next to Keller Lake, a few miles from Kira and Jeffrey's home. Inside, a bloodied pillow, a shirt, and a bra was found. Forensic analysis ran tests on these items and found the blood belonged to Kira Steger. The authorities thought Kira's body may have been dumped in the lake, so police divers were brought in to search for it. They did so despite there still being ice covering much of the surface area. Extensive searches of the lake and surrounding area revealed no further clues. Kira's body was not in the lake. Months continued to pass until May 8, 2013. The St. Paul PD got a call from someone who claimed to have spotted a dead body in the Mississippi River. The naked body was recovered, but due to the level of decomposition, a dental analysis was needed for a positive identity. Once that was complete, it was confirmed this was the body of Kira Steger. While an exact cause of death couldn't be determined, it was evident Kira had suffered from severe blunt force trauma to the head and a fractured index finger. Using the evidence they had gathered, the investigators attempted to reconstruct the events of February 21st. They believed Jeffrey became aware that Kira was messaging someone. When she then refused to show him her phone, he snatched it from her, breaking her finger in the process. Once he saw the messages between Kira and Ryan, Jeffrey then went into a rage and killed her in a fit of anger. After which, Jeffrey loaded Kira's body into her trunk and drove her out to the Mississippi River, stopping to get gas on the way. On his drive home, he dumped the bag with the bloodied pillow and Kira's clothes. Once he was back, Jeffrey began trying to clean up the scene. Jeffrey went to trial in late 2013, where he was convicted of second-degree unintentional murder, after it was determined that Kira's death had been the result of a heated argument that had deadly consequences. In November, Jeffrey was handed a 27.5-year sentence. He later appealed his conviction, stating he was convicted on circumstantial evidence. The courts did not agree. Jeffrey Trevino is currently incarcerated at the Minnesota Correctional Facility. He will remain behind bars until at least 2031.